I wasn't very good at opening up. I wasn't very good at explaining how I feel, how that made me feel, how that made other people feel. And I feel that also plays a role into kind of who I am today and whatnot. So this year was a big year for me in terms of home changes, in terms of me finding myself. And it just goes back to what I was saying before about improving. And I really had to dig deep and understand who I am. I had no idea who I was before. I had no idea. Just because, you just get caught up in the cycle of just all the same old bullshit and just don't know. Yeah. I never thought about my morals, I never thought my values, never thought about who I am or what I want. And this whole communication thing and trying to express how I feel. Previously, I've been the type of person that I could be going through an absolute war in my head, but you'll never know.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just told myself, I'm like, Jerome, wake the fuck up, bro. Like, you're a grown-ass man, sort your shit out.
In a world that constantly throws noise, pressure, and chaos our way, there's one truth that the ancients understood better than most. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength, says Marcus Aurelius. And yet most people spend their lives trying to control the uncontrollable, chasing comfort and blaming circumstances. But not the man we're speaking to today.
Today's guest, Jerome Simpson, is living proof that true strength comes from mastering your mind, choosing discomfort, and standing on your values, especially when it's hard. As Seneca once said, we have the power to control our own lives, to determine our own happiness and success. Jerome embodies this, not just through his relentless pursuit of becoming a professional bodybuilder, but through quiet work he does behind the scenes, away from the stage lights. He has competed in 10 shows, both nationally and internationally, and most recently winning the overall title at the IFBB New South Wales stage show in April earlier this year. From software engineering to now transitioning into building high-performance athletes, Jerome's mission is built on structure, pursuit, and purpose. Welcome to the podcast, Jerome.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how you been? How's everything going? How's
life? Everything's good, man. Everything's good. Just, I like to say, cruising along.
Cruising along?
Cruising along, bro. Cruising along.
So we had the privilege to watch you compete both in New South Wales, where you won the overall this year, and we went to nationals as well.
Yep.
You came close in the super heavies.
Thank you.
Came very close.
Very close.
I would have argued that you had a more aesthetic looking physique. But yeah, obviously the other guy, I guess, was slightly bigger maybe.
I think in terms of that, I think apples, oranges, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're so different. But at the end of the day, he won fair and square.
Exactly,
I'm happy with that.
That's it.
It's a subjective sport, I guess. And, when it comes to the judging criteria, at the end of the day, we know, regardless of the results, we need to keep on improving and do everything that we can to get better. And, yeah, if there's anything that I learned from my most recent show experience, it's that it lights a fire under your ass. It's like when you don't get the result that you hope for, it's like, okay, awesome. I'm not going to blame anyone else. I'm not going to blame the judges or the other competitors or think about that. It's just, how can I bring a better improvement to the stage next time I compete? And I think you're a fantastic example of someone that embodies that, because we see you in the gym at Metroflex. We see how dedicated you are. When the headphones are in, it's like, okay, I'm here to work. I'm here to get a job done. And, that atmosphere that you generate, that environment, it's contagious. It's contagious.
Uplifting, yeah.
It's uplifting.
Definitely.
So,
Thank you.
No, of course, man. All the boys notice that. And I think it's really good to see someone who not only walks the walk, but, walks the talk and essentially just goes after it every day. And obviously, your physique progression across the last couple of years from your last show to this show has shown that it is about relentless pursuit. It is about working hard. So I want us to delve into that, and Nick, take us into the first segment.
Yeah, well, I wanted to first start by asking a bit about your background. So you can start as early as your childhood if you like. But yeah, before bodybuilding and how you got into the sport.
So let's just, we'll start at the end of high school. Kind of was always into IT, coding, things like that. So then got into university to do software engineering, and then kind of started that gig and then migrated to IT e-business. Just felt like it was more aligned to me. Anyway, so that's what I graduated with in 2016. And then basically from there, halfway through my degree, I got a internship at Westpac.
Okay.
And when I graduated, I just migrated over there full time, and I've just been there ever since. So just chopping and changing around the business in like all sorts of different positions and whatnot. And yeah, that's kind of where I am today.
Episode of the Jacked Philosopher is brought to you by Metamorph Physique, our coaching and mentorship program for men ready to transform their body, mindset, and life. We know what it feels to be stuck, overweight, unmotivated, undisciplined. That's where we started. And that is why we created a program that goes beyond training plans and diets. We rebuild daily structure, discipline, and the confidence that comes from building a physique that you're proud of. If you're ready to stop wasting time and finally take control, head to metamorphphysique.com or DM us on Instagram at George_metamorph or Nick_metamorph to transform your body and transform your life.
Okay, yeah. And were you always sort of training throughout your studies and all that? And
So the gym kind of came into it, I would say, probably the end of uni. So the last year, that's kind of when I started training. And so it was maybe like 2021 around that time. And then, didn't know what I was doing as with anyone. It was all about the 3-hour, arms and chest sessions on a Friday night, and then like a 3 sets of legs, and and that's how it all started pretty much. And then that kind of slowly migrated into, just trying to get stronger, trying to be better. And then that migrated into my first show, and then it just snowball effect, snowball until I'm here now.
yeah, wow. So how did you decide that you wanted to compete in bodybuilding?
Good question. So I don't actually know. So I don't know why I got into the gym in the first place. It was just one of those things. Like if I have a thought process, if I think of something, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, and then I did, and just fell in love with it. That kind of the feeling, like there wasn't anything like it elsewhere that I had going in my life, and I was just stuck with that. So in terms of how I got into competing, I had some people around me that that were old school bodybuilders from early 2000s and late 90s that said, hey, you could do really good at this. So I thought, sure, like why not? And made an absolute fool of myself on my first show, not knowing anything.
As most of us do.
Yeah, I can tell you what, I definitely wasn't in condition, that's for sure.
Me neither, but don't worry.
I don't think anyone was. But yeah, and that's how it kind of all first started. And I kind of slowly started to learn what bodybuilding is, like the journey of it more specifically. And then that, as I said, just snowballed.
And what does relentless pursuit mean to you? Because it is something that you speak about. It's something that kind of, it resonates with everyone, but on a different level. It seems to particularly resonate with you. What are you pursuing relentlessly?
So relentless pursuit means just going after your goals every single day. You need to tick the boxes every single day to the best of your ability. And my progress has purely come from that itself, and that's how I've made my progress. So I always fall back to that. If I need to improve, I need to tick the box every single day to the best of my ability. And I've got this, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it feels like if I don't do that, then I can't progress. So call that crazy, call that good, I don't know. And everyone knows I'm just, off season, I've got my micro scales and I'm measuring like my low sodium salt.
Yep. I'm doing this. It's funny because Nick walked in the kitchen on me this morning, and my parents, and they're like, "Oh, aren't you in the off season now?" And I'm like, "No, man, I'm still having my 6 grams of salt a day." It's like everything is to the T, and I completely resonate with you on that because it's funny. Like the Gen Pop that might be listening to this, from the outside looking in, they're like, "That is insane," but what they don't realize is a lot of us, especially people who may have, gone through something in the past, or have maybe had negative experiences in their lives. If we don't have that structure or the element of structure, it's very easy to sort of derail. At least that's what I found in my case anyway. And I found that similarly to you, I need to have that structure in my life now, because if I don't, I'll genuinely feel lost. So when you talk about the theme of balance, it's like, well, what does balance really mean, right? If you want to excel at anything and you want to become the best at anything, there really isn't any balance, because you're either all in or you're all out. And I think that goes for anything in life. It's not just bodybuilding. It goes for business. I think it goes for being a father. It goes for being, a loving partner. And you need to really try and work at excelling those habits or those skill sets that make up that, that perfect bodybuilder, that perfect father, well, as perfect as we can get, because we can never be perfect, but we can always strive to be as good as we can. And I think that it's a big epiphany for some people to realize that this is just what it takes. It's like in bodybuilding, it's obviously visually obvious because we are training to, become as big as possible, to become as muscular as possible. And you can physically see that the effects of that. Whereas someone in business, right, who has achieved the same thing, just because you can't visually see it, they think
Correct.
it's not as extreme, but you don't know that guy hasn't been on his laptop for 23 hours a day for the last 5 years, just grinding away, doing what he's doing, just because you can't see it on his body. Whereas with us, I think that's where the negative stigma comes into it. It's like, oh, they're just meatheads. Well, it's like there's a lot more to it than that. There is so much structure involved. There is, so many variables involved that we love to be in control of that most people would not be able to do it, which is why there's not many people like you walking around today. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. You're spot on. Just like you said, you've got like your business guys that are, it's the same concept, but just how they show it is different. Exactly. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Agree more.
So do you think that the structure and discipline that you have for your sport is, I guess, relevant and translates to other areas of your life?
It's a good question because I've thought about this in the past, and as much as I would like it to, it doesn't quite translate the same, oddly. Like the whole bodybuilding scene for me is just 100, like all or nothing, all or nothing. But then other aspects of my life, I feel like I've set the standard so high with that it takes so much of my mental capacity that I can't almost apply that to other areas of life. Whether if that's good or bad, I don't know, but it's always something I'm trying to improve. And it always goes back to just me being me and me trying to improve all aspects. So it's not like I forget about everything else in life. Absolutely not. It's just I've set the standard so high with this because I give it my absolute everything that it's almost like I don't have much left to give on all my other things. But I'm still actively trying to be better, still trying to improve, still trying to, whatever the case may be, for whatever scenario, for whatever I'm trying to improve, I'm always trying to improve.
Yeah, and I guess that's the overarching idea where even down the line, I think that's what we notice with bodybuilding and life, where at one point, like right now, you're knocking on the door of your pro card, obviously there's a hierarchy of priorities there. So bodybuilding is at the forefront, but I think later on down the line, many years into the future, the lessons and the idea of constantly trying to improve, I think that's the main thing that translates across. Not necessarily like being super pedantic about, tracking
right.
and things like that. But yeah.
I was just going to say, speaking about the things that we do to try and improve and translate into other areas of life, because I know it is hard, and I sometimes struggle with the same thing because, to the best of my ability, I try and give bodybuilding my all as well. But then it's like, okay, well, we're trying to also balance the business. I'm trying to balance my, my shift work, which I spoke to you about earlier, how that's taking a hit. But I'd rather that take a hit over my bodybuilding because bodybuilding holds such a much higher respect and regard to me than, my shift work job does. And at the end of the day, if I was willing to sacrifice anything, it'd be my shift work job to pursue bodybuilding and coaching full time, even if it came at a cost of half my wage. But that's just how passionate we are about what we do. And like you said, call it an obsession or whatever it is. At the end of the day, it's what drives us. But what I want to dive into and discover more is how do you turn off the Jerome the bodybuilder to then Jerome the father? Because you have a beautiful daughter as well who came up on stage, when you won your overall at New South Wales, which honestly, it actually put a massive smile on my face seeing that, because that is our ultimate goal. I think every man's ultimate goal is to become a father who his kids can look up to. How do you make that switch between, Jerome, the ferocious big bodybuilder who just gives everything himself, and then Jerome, the loving, gentle, soft father at home who his daughter can look up to? Yeah,
it's a really good question. And I've never really talked about this, but I struggled to be a dad. I really, in the early stages, I really did struggle. And I haven't really told many people about this, but I struggled a lot. I never had a dad growing up, so I don't know what a male identity or someone to look up to was, or I don't know how that felt. So then if I don't know how it felt, I don't know, I don't know what to base it off.
Yep.
So me being a new father, a few years ago, almost 4 years ago now, I really struggled, and I still kind of struggle to this day almost, just because I feel like that's the only thing that I can think of that I just didn't have a sense of what to do. And it might seem silly to some, but it always improves, and it goes back just trying to improve. But yeah, I did find it, and I still find it very hard. I feel like I grew up with a lot of females, so I'm a very gentle person outside of the gym. Yeah, I can be a cranky ass when I need to be, and whatnot. But I feel like I'm very soft. I feel like I'm very gentle, and I think that there's just a balance of between of showing that, but also being firm and things like that. And I always say to Ava, you can, and it's exactly what I said on stage. You can achieve anything in life if you just work hard for it, and that just goes to show for this. Some people, like a father, like the whole concept of being a dad might come easier than others. But for me, that's just who I am. I just found it hard, and I feel like it's just because I didn't have someone to look up to or anything like that when I was younger, at least for when I was kind of growing up in my, early teens to late teens and whatnot, which is kind of, I feel like, where is most important.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that off the bat, Jerome. Like, it's a really special thing to be able to open up about that. And I can definitely, see how that can be a big struggle. But I think with, your mindset, like you said, and the things that you have taken from bodybuilding, I think this is where they have overlaid into your relentless pursuit of learning how to be a father, because you've actually had to learn that skill by yourself, because you said, you haven't had that experience of having that dominant sort of male presence in your own life. And I think it's a really special thing, bro. And it's, it's very pleasing to hear that, it's something that you value so much to learn and to continue pursuing, even though if you may not be, your best skill set, like just as you're learning it. And no one's perfect. Like, what's a perfect father? There are so many different ways to, to father a kid. And, we can use our own experiences from our parents or someone else, your cultural experiences. But at the end of the day, it shows that you have genuine love for your family, and you can see that through your personality. And I think, for Ava, at the end of the day, that's going to be the ultimate thing that she's going to learn from you, because
thank you.
Being exposed to that love and knowing that, she has a loving father is going to be the most important thing. And, you're already smashing that, bro. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't get to see her as much as I would like to, but at the end of the day, I'm trying my best just to be there for her at any point in time. And it's hard, because also going back to what we were talking about before, like I'm the type of person that I'm not very good. Okay, so I wasn't very good at communicating. I wasn't very good at opening up. I wasn't very good at explaining how I feel, how that made me feel, how that made other people feel. And I feel that also plays a role into kind of who I am today and whatnot. So, this year was a big year for me in terms of home changes, in terms of me finding myself. And it just goes back to what I was saying before about improving. And I really had to dig deep and understand, like, who I am. I had no idea who I was before. I had no idea. Just because, you just get caught up in the cycle of just all the same old bullshit, and you just don't know.
Yeah.
I never thought about my morals, I never thought my values, never thought about who I am, or what I want. And then it's just and this whole communication thing and trying to express how I feel. Previously, I've been the type of person that I could be going through an absolute war in my head, but you'll never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're very
You'll never.
You don't show it at all.
No,
Yeah.
there'll be no emotion. I will just be poker face. You will not know. I'll come into the gym and I'll just take it. I'll just express that, how I feel out, whether that be good or bad. It literally could be anything. But they are just. I wasn't that person that could express how I feel in terms of the ability to do that, but then also how to do that, and then just even how to communicate. Like, I didn't even know I couldn't even comprehend how I feel and explain that. And I feel like now, like this year, I just told myself, I'm like, Jerome, wake the fuck up, bro. Like, you're a grown ass man, sort your shit out. And and that goes back to what I was saying, improving. And I really dug deep to find out who I am, what I want, and what I want to improve. And then now I could not be happier. Like I've got everything going for me. I feel like I've improved. You know, I can talk about these things before I wouldn't even talk about it. You just be like, no,
Yep.
There's nothing coming out. There's absolutely nothing coming out.
What does that process look like from not knowing your identity to figuring out your morals, values, and the things that you want in life? What's something tangible that you did to realize that?
I think I was so overwhelmed with not knowing what to do, how to do it, all these things, and I think it goes back to relentless pursuit of just trying to improve every single day. So I had I had a whiteboard on my fridge, and I just wrote down a few things that really stood out to me and what I wanted to improve. And I made sure every single day for the next however long I did that. And multiple times a day I would read them. I'd just stand in front of the fridge just for 5-10 minutes and just stare at it and just look at it and just make sure that like I embrace that fully, because that was my opportunity to improve. And, the quote, of Michael Jordan, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. The perfect opportunity for me to improve. And if I waste it, I'm just throwing it away. Like, this is the perfect opportunity. So like I did everything I could to improve.
So in the face of adversity, instead of letting that sort of define you, you kind of took that as the opportunity to become better.
Absolutely. It was the perfect scenario too. Like I'm a logical person, but I also struggle to embrace that when I'm in a situation like that.
Well, I think everyone does, and it's understandable, because at the end of the day, and we've spoken about this in previous episodes, we always want to steer towards comfort because that's where, we feel safe. But it's often when we do get comfortable that we start to shy away from challenges. We start to not wanting to learn more because we become content. And that's probably the most dangerous thing that we can do as men, especially because men are meant to be leaders and we are supposed to always strive for more. But it isn't until we are hit with that adversity where we're faced with that decision, which you said yourself, you're sitting there standing in front of the fridge, it's like, okay, what the fuck am I going to do today? It's like, am I going to embrace this and take it on, or am I going to let it consume me? And what I wanted to ask you, Jerome, and, we ask all our guests this, do you think that it is necessary for all men to actually go through a period of adversity so that then they have to be met with that decision to either persevere through in order for them to actually get to where they want to in life? Do you think it's a necessary part of life in order to get successful in whatever domain that may be, to actually go through that adversity, trauma, whatever it may be?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I do agree. Now, I think now you can. I don't also agree that you need to do that by yourself too. And I think, it just depends on the scenario. Yep. But you can learn so much from going through the hard things. But these hard things, they always lead to something positive. It's never something negative. And another quote that I always like to say: choose your hard. Hard's everywhere, man. Yep. Hard as ever. It's hard for me walking up the stairs here, bro. you know what
I can imagine.
At 140 kegs, yeah, bro, it would be.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, like, just because someone might see it as easy or whatnot, like everything is hard. So, if everything's hard, just choose something that's going to improve you. Choose something that's hard that's going to improve you.
That's right. And the other big thing that you brought up there was as well, don't be afraid to talk about it, or you don't have to go through it by yourself, which I think is a massive pivotal thing that has not only, been beneficial for you, like you just said, being able to open up and communicate for the first time. That's massive, bro. Like, that is a massive step, especially coming from, someone who, as I said, would typically hold things and hide things in. And I think all men can relate to that, because we all feel like as men, we have to harness these feelings because we have to just show up and be that sort of emotionless, faceless person. Yep, I'm going through it. But, and this is what we were talking about with JP last week as well. this is where that stoic approach can actually interfere with, the emotional approach and the sort of loving approach that, we get from God because we believe in God. But I think that it's important to be able to show emotion and to show vulnerability where it's needed, because as you just said, it's necessary for us to connect as human beings. And without that connection with one another, without the people that we can feel like we can share things with, we will become lost. We can only go through things by ourselves so much before we end up driving ourselves into a mental despair. And that's ultimately what I see happening in a lot of modern day society, which is why I think it's so important to be able to speak about these things on a platform, because I know that there are men out there who are listening to this or might listen to this that are going through their own version of, trauma or mental health, and they genuinely do feel like they don't have anyone to talk about it with, and they feel like they have to harness it all in. But you look at even top tier athletes now who have a massive platform like Chris Bumstead, who speaks about on his YouTube, and that's actually how he met Courtney, because he showed his vulnerability on one of his videos, and he showed his emotion as a man, and look at how it's turned out for him. It's like, by being that emotionally available man, who women need, by the way, women need you to be emotionally available. It allows that beautiful union to actually take place and for you to be able to connect with other human beings. And that's something that needs to be stressed. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, Jerome, because it is important, and it's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of, he's a bitch. It's not. It's okay. No, I've actually got balls because I'm willing to talk about this. And as you've said, nothing but positive has come from it. Yes, exactly. It may be hard, but every hard thing leads to a positive outcome. Because if it doesn't, you're already in the trenches. Like, how much worse can it get? You're already there at rock bottom, So
I've got a bit of an interesting perspective on that fine line, where you kind of realizing that you need to actually be in touch with your emotions. It was from an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, where he said it's the realization of our mortality. The realization of our mortality is what allows us to express love. It's what allows us to actually feel emotions. Because if we were around forever, then what would be the point of taking risks? Exactly. What would be, like, if life was infinite, then, there's no real point of, asking the girl out. There's no real point of starting a family, because you're not missing out on anything. You're going to be around forever.
That's right.
So,
talking about it is a flex. It's such like an important thing. And before, whatever I felt, whether it was good or bad, I would just cover it with, I don't even know what. It would just be, I would take it to my grave. Like, there'll be very, very, very rare or occasions where I would talk about it. And like I said before, I wouldn't even know how to talk about it or express it. But it also comes down to the people who you express it to.
Yep.
I've been in situations in the past, earlier this year, where I couldn't do that, and I didn't know how to. Like I couldn't comprehend, the other person didn't understand, whatever the case may be. And I feel like the environment that you have and the people that are in your circle will allow that. Like, it will allow you to do that so much easier. Yeah. And it's now a completely different person. It feels like it's just so much easier. It feels like almost
a weight's been lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah. It feels like it's like an easy thing for me to do now. And going back to what you said before about I now can be a better person. I can show my emotion. I can express my love. Whereas before, like, comparing me now to the old Jerome that did that, the way that I express my love and my emotions is completely different and like levels above than what I could before. And I think that was, but I had to go through that to be able to understand what that actually was.
Yeah. Right. So who is Jerome Simpson beyond the muscle and the...
Geez, I don't even know myself, to be honest.
We can go back to it.
No. Look, I think I get stereotyped a lot. Yeah. The people who know me know what I stand for, what I believe in, the type of person I am. I'm very quiet. I'm humble, but I'm confident. But at the same time, I'll walk down the street or I see someone at the gym. They'll probably think I've been told I'm arrogant. I've been told I'm nasty. I've been told I'm, rude, all these things. But it's just because you don't know me. Yeah. And, good, because that's an automatic filter out all the people that I don't want in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want people like that. And the people who do want to get to know me and do understand me, they're the ones that I cherish and I value. And comparing me now to comparing, old Jerome, I feel like I can do that so much better now. And I'm so, I'm just so thankful that I've gone through this adversity just to be someone that I actually am proud of and someone that I can believe in. We can touch on later with the whole bodybuilding thing, but I'm just someone that I'm proud. I'm proud to be me.
That's awesome. And I think it's a massive, pivotal moment that every man needs to realize at some point. It's like we can pursue whatever it is that we want, but if we don't know the reason why we're doing that, even within that sport or that venture within itself, we can become lost. And I think it's so important because when I first started bodybuilding, I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I was doing it because I had my heart broken. And then I was made fun of throughout pretty much my entire school because I was always the fat kid, used to be obese and whatnot. And I hated myself and I hated everyone around me. But the real person that I hated wasn't the people that were making fun of me. It wasn't, old mate who was calling me fat or whatever. It was myself and my own lack of my inaction to actually change anything. And obviously speaking from previous episodes, what pivotal moment Nick and I came to when we decided to make that change. It was after a big fight that we had when we were on holiday where, I heard him and I realized it's gotten to the stage where, I'm fed up with myself so much that I can't understand my own meaning and what the point of me doing anything is, that I've taken it out now on someone else that I love. And that was my sort of pivotal moment. And that's when I came to the realization, okay, I need to change, but it still wasn't for the right reasons to begin with. It was still, like I said, I was that heartbroken kid, and then I was fed up with myself for being fat, and I was bodybuilding out of hate. And then it wasn't until I started to discover myself, as, okay, George, the person who enjoys training now because he started to develop a love for it, who started to see a journey actually progress from this. And like you said, it is all about that journey. And we learn so much on that journey in the gym, through the adversities, through everything. I think a lot of that is what actually makes up our identity and helps us come to that realization. So I wanted to ask you, did you yourself have a specific, pivotal moment while you were discovering yourself, to say, okay, now this is the new Jerome, this is why this is the new Jerome, as opposed to the old Jerome?
There wasn't so much like a pivotal moment. For me, it was just like a small buildup of things, as the days and the weeks and the months go by, you just kind of slowly get more in tune with yourself. You understand more yourself, and everything just kind of slowly started to be put into place, just like a jigsaw puzzle, At first, I get overwhelmed so easily, it's just so all over the place. But then, I start laying down one foundation, and then the next foundation kind of slid in there. Then everything else just kind of slowly and like almost without even trying to just kind of put itself together.
Yep.
And like another quote that I love saying, like, everything happens for a reason. So like it all kind of just placed itself together so well.
Were you at any point scared? Because for me, when I was kind of going through the journey of discovering who I am, and I don't believe that the journey ever finishes really. It's a lifelong thing, and you don't ever really define who you are. But yeah, I found it very scary. Like, it's very confronting, reflecting on who you are, what you believe in, where you want to be in the future. How do you deal with that?
Looking back at it, I don't think I found it scary to an extent. I just found it like I just didn't know the answers.
Yeah.
And I didn't kind of connotate that with being scared, or I was just kind of lost.
Yeah.
Scared for me is all like so many things are going down the wrong path almost. That for me, that's how I felt. How I would say it. But I just felt like it just kind of just slowly started just to come together and whatnot, basically.
Yeah, nice. So what's, given your journey and obviously where you want to sort of go and take the sport, what happens in the journey, after? So when the stage lights fade and, with time, obviously, who knows what we're going to be doing 30, 40 years down the line, what's something that you want to be remembered for?
Something that I want to be remembered for was just so previously the old Jerome, I would like to say that I would action what I would say, which it never really was the case with most things, except for bodybuilding, like the personal Jerome, the attributes of Jerome. Like I would say that I would do something, but I never kind of did that. The new version of Jerome is completely different. And that's what I kind of want to be remembered for. I want to be remembered for he always gave his best to be his best, like just all about improving. And that's just something that I really want to be like, I really want to be known for. I feel like, there's the whole relentless pursuit, just ticking the boxes every single day, trying to be better, just all the adversity, all the things, all the shit cards have been dealt, all the, whatever the case may be, just be known for always wanting to improve at all costs.
And how, as a coach, because you've got your coaching business as well now, Jacked by Jay.
Yes, thank you.
And how would you say you were able to transfer those over to your clients, those skills, those attributes, that whole ethos of that relentless pursuit? How do you communicate that across with your clients who may not necessarily be at the same level that you are or have the same structure of discipline that we do, right? Because we've spoken about this on our group calls, in the past about how, people like, yourself, George Adams, me, the bodybuilders in the group, how we don't even think about it, right? It's like for me, I know I'm having 150 grams raw weight rice. It will not be 1 gram over. Like, it'll be 150 grams raw weight rice. If I'm having 40 grams of jam and 41 comes out on the spoon, I'm putting 1 fucking gram back in the jar. It's Absolutely. Like, it's just, it's not, and, Nick can attest to this as well. Like, he'll see me like take out 3 leaves of spinach. Like if it's yeah, like in prep anyway, in the off season, the spinach is spinach, but
yeah, I know.
Yeah. But, that to even our clients, right, they'll see that as extreme. And I've even had my own clients come and tell me, like, oh, do you expect me to do this? I said, no, hang on a second. I said, we've got 2 very different goals. But even myself sometimes, and Nick sees this too, we have a very different level of adherence, that most people would say would be acceptable, in the context of a diet or a training plan, whatever. We're very obsessed about the numbers, about the data, and about tracking everything to a T. But having to communicate that to our clients is a very different thing, and to tailor it to their level is a skill set in itself. So what I wanted to ask you is, how do you translate that into, say, for example, a lifestyle client or someone who is not as technically advanced with their meal prepping practices or their, their discipline structure regarding training as yourself? How do you make that translation and at the same time still push them to be the best version of themselves and pursue that constant improvement?
So, like, my ideal client is the high-performing athlete. I love they don't need to compete. They just want to they want to improve. So it's almost like it kind of automatically will filter out the people that, half in, half out. So I'm already getting the individuals that want to be the best that they can be. So half of, like, the job's pretty much almost done. It's just me kind of, explaining to them that, or helping them tweak things and informing them that they are doing a good job and they are on the right path. Because at the end of the day, like, they're coming to me because they see what I've done and what I'm about and my methodologies and how I got to where I am from ticking the boxes every single day. So they're already doing that. So it's just me about applauding them, and I'm always honest. I'm like, if I feel like they're, things could be better, then I will tell them. And if I think that they're doing good, I will tell them. I'm always honest. So it's almost like I don't really need to do too much because they already have that willpower inside of them already.
Fantastic.
But, for the lifestyle guys, I feel like it just comes back down to goals. And, their goals are going to be different to our goals. And then with goals, the behind the scenes is going to be very different too. So it really just comes down to that. But I feel like just explaining to them and just trying to teach them that, you can. I've got this quote that I really love, but I can't remember the exact wording of it. But the flexibility in your approach is just as important as, like, the discipline in your actions or something along those lines. And I feel like that applies to pretty much everyone. So I feel like they as long as we kind of continue working towards the goals and having them learn and be educated along the way of, making smart choices, or, if a scenario comes up, how to deal with it appropriately.
That's right. And I think it's important to make that disparity clear between the different client types, because a lot of people think, at least we see this in the lifestyle space anyway, because the majority of our clients are lifestyle clients. Like, our ideal client profile is more of, trying to rebuild the broken man or that broken person that came from similar positions that we were in terms of either extreme, weight gain or, drug or substance abuse, because that was my previous experience as well. But I think that people need to know that there can be an element of balance achieved. However, if you give someone an inch, don't take a mile, because if you say to them, okay, you can have one off-plan meal a week, but then they're taking the piss out of that, as you said, the flexibility of your approach will determine the actions, that you get. So if you're over-flexible and it's to the point where you're not actually putting the effort in, well, what results are you expecting? Because, they're very quick to look at people like us and say, oh, well, look at you guys, how much food you get to eat. Or they see us posting a bowl of like 150 grams of cream of rice with berries and nut, but I want to have that. It's like, you're not going to burn that, mate. It's like, you don't have...
It's completely different.
Yeah, it's a completely different ball game, and they think it's all genetics, and it's not. It's just days and days upon days of turning up, and just completing every single rep, every single set, weighing everything to the gram, consistently for years and years and years. And I'm still at the beginning of that journey. Like, you're way well ahead of me.
I'm still a baby too.
No, we're all.
I'm still a baby too.
Yeah. But, for people that have already been doing it for years, people don't see that. They think that they can just do a diet for 2 or 3 months and that's it. They're expecting to look like you, or they're expecting to achieve a transformation, that I did. It's like, it's been going on 4.5 years now for me personally,
and it will still continue to be.
And it will still.
It'll go for the next 30,
and it'll go for the next.
Exactly.
It'll go for the next until I can't do it anymore physically. So it's as you said, bro. We are still babies in this journey. How old are you, by the way, Jerome?
I'm 29.
29. There you go.
I look like I'm 49. I feel like I'm 89.
Yeah, that's how. Yeah, I'm 25, bro, and I've got grey hairs in my beard, so I think
I feel like
heads will do that, bro.
Well, that's why I go with this.
Yeah.
So, do you think that training and some sort of structured nutrition is necessary for everyone?
Not for everyone. It just comes back down to their goals, and it comes down to like their type of personality. If they thrive and live off structure and routine, then it will probably help. But there's also guys out there, or there's individuals out there that they're so happy and so content of just waking up and not knowing what they're going to eat. They're going to go fast all day, then they're going to go for a 4-hour work. A 4-hour walk, and then come home and have a steak and potatoes for dinner, and then go to bed. And they're happy as Larry, and that's perfect for them. But for us, it's completely different.
Yeah. Well, I was more so down the line of health in general and building a society that is healthy, that where people have physical improvement, mental improvement, all at the forefront. I personally believe that starts with having some sort of physical challenge that you want to do. It doesn't have to be, bodybuilding, but I do believe that training something to an extent is sort of necessary for the human condition.
Yeah, if you're asking that, yeah, absolutely, yeah, 100%. There should be some, like, you should be ticking some kind of box for like your macros or your output, some kind of physical activity, and like for us it's the gym, it's the cardio and all these things, but for someone else it could be playing golf.
It could be martial arts, it could be anything, as long as there's, I think the necessity of having some sort of physical challenge that that you have to keep yourself accountable to, just in any form, I think, just to essentially have that structure of discipline in place. And it doesn't have to be to a competitive level, but saying to yourself, okay, I'm making a commitment to myself to turn up to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 3 times a week, because I enjoy it and I like rolling around on the floor, whatever, right? Turning that into a discipline and then, becoming good at it, or having that to hold yourself accountable just for your own health and fitness, in whatever form that may look like, kickboxing, anything, right? I generally see, across the population that people that do hold themselves to some sort of physical standard, whatever that may look like, will generally go further and will be healthier and happier in life. And I think it's something that isn't anywhere near pushed as much as you should be. Like, people are very quick to, say, oh, you don't need to exercise, just, go to the cinemas and just, do this instead, or put Netflix on and eat a bag of popcorn. Or
Well, going off that, I want to know your thoughts as a high-level athlete for the general population, things like Ozempic and Retta and all that, how I think that they're overprescribed. But do you think that has an impact on society in general?
I feel like it allows people. So there's the easy way and the hard way. I feel like you're going to learn so much more from the hard way in most circumstances. But I feel like that it's just the automatic route that they just go down, and then they don't actually. Yeah, they might solve the problem, but the underlying root cause of like how they got there.
Exactly.
This is something that we were speaking about.
Yeah. So I just recently signed on a client who, and as a kid as well, his parents put him on Ozempic, right? Because he was overweight as a kid. So from 17 years old, they had him on it. When it first came out, mind you, so there was still no real data behind the use of this drug. And now there's a lot of data coming out saying that there's a lot of potential side effects. And a few of our clients that I've spoken to have used Ozempic for a while, and then they've come off, they've put all the weight back on, because as you just pointed out exactly, it does not solve the underlying issue of how you got to that body weight in the first place, because it wasn't because of, your genetics. It was because there was a lack of self-control. There was a lack of discipline in some area of life where that drug does not fix. That drug will slow down your rate of digestion. It's a GLP-1 agonist. Some of them have got 3 different mechanisms of action on the, glucocorticoid receptors and whatnot. Glucagon-like peptide, sorry. And essentially they just work on the digestion part of your body. They're not actually taking effect into the brain. You're not rewiring your brain like other drugs do. And even them, right? I'm very against those as well, because a lot of drugs that they prescribe for, whether it's ADHD, depression, pain meds, whatever they are, again, once you come off those drugs, you haven't actually solved that underlying issue, because the feeling, the emotion is still there. You can't really fix that, or you can temporarily numb it, just like people do with recreational drugs. You can have a line of Coke, and then for 20 minutes you'll feel on top of the moon, but then what happens after that? You have another one, or you come down, and you're re-chasing that high.
Correct, yeah.
And
I don't have a problem, or I don't see it as a bad thing, as long as it works alongside of the hard work and the effort. Like,
that's right.
It's the same with what we do in our sport. You can take all the gear, but if you don't put the work in, you're not going to get anywhere.
Correct.
And it's the same with anything else. If it's the same, for some kind of heart medication, or whatever the case may be, like, as long as you're doing the work alongside of it, then I think that's totally acceptable.
Yeah, that's right. And I think in a lot of extreme cases too, like, there are people who are severely obese where if there isn't any intervention from a pharmacological perspective, at least to get the process started without, because otherwise they'll die. Yes, in a sense, it is good that those drugs are available to help kickstart that process. But I think because those have been advertised and marketed so much now in modern day society, the general public are just like, oh, I'm going to go use Ozempic because, they've said that it loses weight. And they'll just, jab it away. And I know people from my workplace that have used it, and surprise, surprise, they've put the weight back. They've done one course of it, and they've put the weight back on, because, as you said, they're going with a mentality of, I'm just going to use this, do absolutely nothing and change nothing about my lifestyle, and hope that the drug does the work. It's like, well, yeah, and people look at steroids the same way. It's like, yeah, you can use as much gear as you want. If you're sitting on the couch, if you're skipping legs, if you're not then you're not going to, if your nutrition and diet isn't on point, like we just spoke about, everything is weighed to the gram. Our sleep times attract everything. Some people are using a CPAP, which is an investment in itself just to try and get better sleep. We make all these investments, to try and promote muscle growth naturally, right, as much as we can, and maximize it to the extent that we know how to. Anything else that's used on top is literally there to facilitate that.
Correct.
It's not there to take over. It's okay, this is part of my recovery. This is part of my, it's going to help facilitate the muscle growth and whatnot, alongside everything else that's already in place.
And I think that's a very big problem, especially these days. And I think it is getting worse where, people will take one look at someone like yourself and they'll say, oh, steroids. And then they'll hop on, not get those results. And instead of trying to figure out what went wrong, they just take more.
Bro.
They take more. Exactly. They take more. And then, it's all genetics. It's not, they don't see the work that you put in.
Exactly. It always comes back down to the underlying reason and the effort. But also if we go back a step, I also feel like how someone looks is a good representation of kind of who they are as a person. I feel like, if I see like a Jacked, if I look at you or somebody else down the street and they compete or like they're large, I know that they're putting in the work.
Yeah.
And it might seem bad, but if I see, an extremely obese person and they've been like that for years and years and years, I feel like it kind of it leaks out into everything else in their life. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. Whether that's judgy, I don't know. But that's just my interpretation of it, because from my standpoint, in terms of like what we do, it's we wear it on our sleeves. It's hard work on our sleeves.
Yeah, that's right. And well, there's physical proof too. They've even done a lot of social studies on this where, in general, even in the workplace, right? I was actually reading an article about this the other day. You are automatically, right, going to be judged differently walking into a room if you look one way as opposed to another. You are going to be given more opportunity by default if you look like someone like yourself compared to someone who is 160 kilos and overweight. Right, you were going to be treated with a different amount of respect. I noticed that myself, when I went from being so big, no one would even look at me. People wouldn't be bothered to get up to shake my hand when when I'd greet them. Whereas now it's like all of a sudden, oh, what are you doing for this? Or how much protein do you eat? Or,
That's something that I noticed myself when I was obese. No one cared about my opinion. I mean, I've always been intellectual and people did value my opinion, but no one would actually ask. Yeah. Nowadays, like being a lot fitter, being, pursuing something important, I'm the first port of call for a lot of people where they'll ask me what I think. Yeah.
It's really good.
And I noticed that after I made my transformation, and people they do perceive you differently.
Why?
Well, because there's an element of trust there where it's like, okay, this person cares about how they look. They care about how healthy they are. They might care about me, or they might be able to provide the best advice that will help me, no matter what it is. So I'm not just talking about health and fitness. I'm talking about like, should I get, I don't know, these shoes or these shoes? For some reason, even little trivial things like that, they seem to come to you because you obviously have an element of care there about yourself, and therefore that'll translate to them.
I think it's the respect thing as well. It's you having respect for yourself to look a certain way that you do, knowing that it's hard to uphold that, or that it's a consistent process to uphold that. And most people, deep down, they know what it takes to do it, but they're not willing to do it. And if they see you standing next to them who actively does that every single day and turns up, I think automatically they're going to be more willing to show respect, or they're going to be more willing to, come to terms with taking your opinion more seriously than others, because you live and breathe what you were talking about, and your physical representation is literally is an example of what you say. So I think that's why it is important. Like I said, that's what we've both have noticed. We had a wedding the other day, and I had about 20 different, because I had my meal prep bag with me. And I had about 20 different people come up to me, and I'm sitting there with the cream of rice at the table, and they've got all the entrees and the cheeses and all the shit there. And I took a photo of it, and the guy next to me is like, "Oh, what's that?" And then I pulled out my next meal an hour later. He's like, "What's that? What's that?" He's like, "Are you competing?" I said, "No, I did just compete, but whatever. I'm kind of rebounding, and whatever. I didn't want to sit there and make it all about me and my diet, because you do get sick of talking about it, especially
It sounds bad, but I hate when people can't see it. Look, I don't mean to sound like mean or bad or not, but I'm just like,
just don't ask me like,
Just fuck off, eh? No.
Dead set, bro. And what was the most common thing they said? Oh, you bodybuilder. I said, do you cut water? Do you cut water? I had every single person, like, do you dehydrate yourself a day before the show? And I'm sitting there literally saying the same thing to 20 different people that I'm just like, I just want to go in a corner and eat my freaking steak and potatoes and just be left alone. But, you know, it's hard because they don't understand. And you have to, you know, with us, because we're so actively involved in the lifestyle and all of us boys, it's like, you know, if you turn up with a meal prep container here, it's like, I'm not even going to, like, to me, I'm just so desensitized to it, like it's normal. But I expect people to think the same thing when I walk into a room with my meal prep container, whereas they're shocked by it, or it's like, you know, we'll be driving and I'll tell Nick, can you drive because I got to heat up a meal, like it's time for me to eat. And we'll drive and we'll get somewhere, then someone will jump in the car and be like, George, what are you doing? Like, you're eating? I'm like, yeah. And
but we're on our way to go eat.
But we're on our way to go. And like, we're about to go to a restaurant. And I'm like, yeah, I said, I have to get another mule in. Like, you know, it's, but it's, I know. As you said, bro, it's, we get sick of talking about it, but,
it's funny what, impersonation that you get from like the Gen Pop or the people that just don't know. It's like, it's wild, like some of the stuff that they think or they say, like, it's just like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Like they look at you and you'll be eating, you know, cream of rice is a good example, right? Because I'll see the dark chocolate where they might say like a bit of almond butter. Oh, isn't that like fattening, or, you know, isn't that bad for you? They have bread, you know, like I love taking the piss out of people that, you know, that say, oh, bread, you know, carbs makes you fat. That's always posted, right? You know, oh, you're having bread, you know, carbohydrates, don't they make you fat? It's like, no, bro, they're fuel. It's like you're eating too much food. Like, that's why, you know.
It's funny, like they just don't know, and it's crazy how, but like,
you can't expect them to, but like I said, you know, it's hard because we're trying to understand them, knowing what we know, and they're trying to understand us, not knowing anything that we know.
Exactly.
So, you know,
but like if we flip it, I don't know anything about basketball, bro. I just love wearing basketball jerseys. I don't know like anything about it, but like it could be the same thing about going. Like I'll be going to like an NBA game and be going, oh yes, so like this. Yeah, they'll be like, bro,
you don't know this.
It'll be the same thing, but
yeah. That's why I think it's important to try not to like lose it at them. Like I try and be as, you know, as neutral as possible and like as simple as possible, but at the same time, like where I think it pisses us off as bodybuilders when like the Gen Pop ask us those questions is because we know that, first of all, it's fatiguing explaining everything to them. And secondly, we also know that they're not going to do anything with that information that we gave them. It's like, because they'll ask us questions, right? Oh, so what do you think I should do for this? Or I'm trying to trim up. You know, they'll start those questions. They'll start putting, you know.
doing these.
Oh, so how do I get rid of this? It's like, if I tell you, are you going to go home and actually do exactly what I said? Or are you going to go and smash a 6-pack of beers and, you know, a pizza? Exactly. It's like, so.
I think in social settings, though, people are trying to just relate to you on some level, because it is difficult. Like, you know, they're not exposed to it every day like we are. Like you said, we are desensitized to it. So, you know, we take a look at Jerome and we know, like, okay, he's probably eaten X amount of times. He's probably having upwards of 300 grams protein, close to it. Over. So to us, it's like, makes sense, right? To someone else, they've got no idea. So they're trying to find something that, you know, they relate to you.
Well, it's funny that you say that. When you went to the bathroom before outside, you know, as soon as you walked out, because I told the boys, I said, because they asked me how my bodybuilding show went and all that. So look, when I wrote, I improved, and I said, you think I'm like, you know, look like a bodybuilder, so you just have the guest that we're bringing. And then, and I told him, I said, he's a 140 kilo giant. I said, and he's not even a professional yet. I said, this is just to give you perspective, right? And as soon as you went to the bathroom, the boys like, fuck, he's huge. I'm like, yeah, man. I say that's what it is, man. Like it's So
thanks, bro.
It's, you know, it's funny, but yeah, like you said, you know, like imagine seeing someone like Nick Walker come through. It's like, you know, I'd be like impressed in person. Like, you know, I'd be like, what the hell is going on? You know, seeing someone like him. So I can only imagine how normal people would perceive.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, we're just freaks to them. But then, like, if we look at all the professional athletes, we're just up, like, it's just been.
They're freaks to us.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the upper level. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's your goal with bodybuilding now? So you obviously want to get your pro card. I think you've said within 5 years, right?
Yep.
And then from there, competing overseas, winning a pro show, maybe.
Yeah. So Look, I believe in myself, but at the same time, I have a really hard time to believe in myself. And now I've got such a good community and small group of people around me, like my partner now, my coach, all my close friends. I've never had, all these individuals or individuals before believe in me so much and see my potential. And it's just so nice. So it's almost like I have a hard time understanding and comprehending what they're actually saying because I just don't see it.
Yep.
All I see is weakness. Oh, like my doctors are shit. Like my this and that, and I just struggle to realize what I potentially could do. I don't know, and I don't want to sound cocky because I'm not that at all. I do. So I believe in myself, but I don't, and look, but I do believe that I'm good enough to win a pro card. I do think that. Now, how far can that go? I don't know, but it comes down to the relentless pursuit. If I'm not going to stop.
Exactly. It comes down to, like you said, having the ability to self-critique yourself. It's like you're never good enough, but you know that you get
sometimes over-critique, but yes.
Yes,
I also critique.
Yeah, look, I think we're all in that habit. It's like and people say the same thing. Oh, your transformation, well done. I said, yeah, but I don't look like that. I don't look like that. It's like there's so much work to do. It's like there's so much more improvement to be made. It's like, and then it gets to the point where you get people sick of telling you that you look good. Because like you do, you're like, oh, hey, bro, you look, every time you put up a story, hey, bro, you look really good like that. Probably, well, it's like, fuck off. Yeah. It's like, no, it's not like, there's a muscle belly's flat. It's like, I'm flat, there's nothing
exactly.
there. It's like, the peak shit. It's like,
you only see your flaws.
Yeah, I know. But I think it's important. To be able to do that because that's what I think will keep you humble. Knowing that, and another very important thing that everyone will say, including Alex Hormozy, the minute that you stop willing to learn, right, is that you think that you know everything is when you stop progressing. And that goes the same for bodybuilding. As soon as you think, oh, I'm big enough, or you have that mentality, oh, I've got all these people beat, mate, your journey's finished right there because that means that you're not willing to take on feedback. You're going to be shitting on the judges for their critique. You're going to be, changing coaches because all of a sudden it's the coach's fault, not the athlete's fault because this isn't working or, this stack design doesn't work or this meal plan doesn't work. And that's when we start to see regression. Whereas if we keep the mentality, even though it might be slightly on the unhealthy side, but hey, that's bodybuilding. It's an obsession. And
everything's unhealthy on life, bro.
Well, yeah. Choose your hard.
Choose your hard, exactly.
So I think that keeping that level of, obsessively self-critiquing yourself to the point where you know that, okay, I know I'm getting better, but I know that there's more work to do. I know that there's more improvements to be made. That is what's going to separate the gym influencers from the bodybuilders who are actually going to stay in the sport long term. Because we said in bodybuilding too, right? How many people will go and do one show or two shows and then you'll never hear of them again?
Exactly.
Because they've rebounded so bad out of their show diet that, it's just completely, and then their priorities have shifted and now I can't be bothered dieting back down before I start an off season or whatnot. And, it's all part of the process. And if you're not willing to learn through that and improve and actually say, okay, I didn't do well at this show. I need to go back, write it down, figure out what I need to improve on, take the judges' feedback and get better, then, that's going to determine how far you progress. And that all comes down to, as you said, keeping that level of humility and saying, doesn't matter how good people tell me I get, I know that I can be better and I know that there are people that are better than me.
I definitely agree. But I would challenge you and say, if you've got the blinders on, always chasing this one goal, can that take away from other things in your life? Like, have you thought about what is most important to you? Well, and this is in the case of any elite sport. I'm not just talking about bodybuilding.
But most of us athletes, we only really care that is our priority, and that is the most important thing to us. And as long as we're happy we're happy as an individual, and we have our small group of people that we love, and all of that, I feel like that's the most ideal scenario.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you see that across any professional sport. Look, take F1 drivers as an example, or swimmers, Olympic swimmers. How many laps? And these are the best people in the world. You got Michael Phelps. All these gold medalists. they spend the most hours in the pool, right? If there was anyone that could get away with less training, it'd be them because they're already the best. But, they're the ones that are spending the extra hours doing the laps. Michael Jordan's the one shooting more hoops than anyone else, LeBron James. It's like, why are these elite level athletes who are already at the top of their game putting in more hours than everyone else? Because that's what they value. And I think at the end of the day, whether it's, again, relating it back to bodybuilding or business, whether you're on your laptop literally 22, 23 hours a day, it's what you prioritize. And I think if you do prioritize, like I said, bodybuilding as a number one priority, there is no balance. That is what you are going to dedicate all of your time to. If you prioritize business as your number one priority, that is your priority. You're going to dedicate all of your time to that. If you are trying to find balance somewhere, where you give, something else is going to have to take. Where you take, someone else is going to have to give.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that it all comes down to is, are you happy doing it?
Yeah.
You can, for example, you can have all the money in the world, but you're not happy. You could be earning like really not much, and you'd be the happiest person ever.
Exactly.
That's what it comes down to. So for me, I am so happy with my partner, with what I'm trying to achieve, my team around me, the people that believe in me. I'm not changing anything.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think that's the best realization to come to, and that is, I think that's as far as you can go about balance. You actually being happy with saying, you know what, this is my situation. This is what genuinely makes me happy. What may seem hard to others, I love and I pursue through it. And it doesn't have to be normal. It doesn't have to be, what other people consider to be balanced. But as long as you're happy doing what you're doing, and you've got a good team of people around you that, that will support you, because as much as they say bodybuilding is an individual sport, it really isn't, because
it really isn't.
The community, like, it's made the biggest difference for us. Like, we live in Mascot, but like I said, I travel to Metroflex, to train
about this,
because the community that's there, Manny, you boys, John, there's just the whole community, Dylan, just all the boys there together, that we know, even though we might be competitors on stage, we're brothers in the gym.
Exactly.
And we're all trying to strive for the same thing, which isn't just physical improvement, but it's mental and spiritual, and having that sense of community where we can share that brotherhood, even on the podcast, sharing that brotherhood, sharing those, those chats. That's what ultimately makes us happy, because it shows us that we're not alone and that we're in this relentless pursuit together. And being able to share that and being able to, like I said, go through that with other people is ultimately the thing that's going to, make sure that we not only stay true to ourselves, but ensure, consistent progress long term.
100%. And if you're happy and the people around you, really believe in you, and you've got a really good circle and your environment is good, everything else is going to flourish. And I've learned this over the past year. My relationship before, my environment, it was shocking. And yes, I progressed. I did everything I could to progress, and I made really good progress. But now that everything is so much better, my progression has just skyrocketed.
Well, you become a product of your environment.
Yeah, exactly. Environment is so important. It's what I've realized. What I've realized this past year, how important it is, and it's super important that people just don't realize, I feel like, and people just underestimate it.
I wanted to ask, so you've got, I believe, Weak Things Break tattooed.
Yes, I just got that done Monday, I think.
Oh, congrats.
Nice.
Still healing up.
Nice. I just wanted to ask, so we like to talk about this on this podcast, obviously the nature of it being the Jacked Philosopher. How do you define strength? What is a strong man in today's world?
I feel like it comes down to, so who I am now is a much stronger individual and a much stronger man than I was before. And I think it comes down to actioning what they're going to say. So the old me wouldn't, I would have liked to think that he would have done that, and some things he would have, but this new version of Jerome is absolutely all about that. So actioning what you're going to say that you are, and then just having the confidence and really just having a dig at something, having a crack. I feel like there's so much, we all care. Like, I feel like too many people worry about failure and whatnot, but failure is so good. It really shows everything, what you can improve, what you can be better, and it's all positives. And then I think the last one is about what we spoke about earlier in terms of, it's not weak to talk. That's huge. And I feel like I'm such a better person, I'm such a better individual. I'm a better father. I'm a better man. I'm a strong man now because I can talk, and everything from that is everything about me, and everything my aura about me is better, I feel like.
And going off that, because that's a very good point, but going off that, in an alternate universe where you didn't pursue bodybuilding, would that Jerome Simpson be? How would he react to adversity compared to who you are now?
I don't know, because I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason, and if I didn't step in that gym in 2016 or whatever it was, I don't know if I would even be doing it right now. I really don't know. Now, I probably won't be in the gym right now if I didn't do that, and I probably wouldn't be the person either, because all of these challenges that I've faced have created this person who I am today. So who knows? I could be a swimmer on like the Saturdays. I don't know. I really don't know. But no, I don't think I would be the person. No, I definitely don't think I would be the person. But that Jerome would be very, very proud of this new Jerome and the future Jeromes to come.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a really good reflection, and as you hit the nail on the head there, pretty much, and that's essentially the conclusion that we've been coming to with everyone. It's the challenges and the failures and the adversities that you go through shape you to be the person that you will become, and will continue to shape you to be the person that you will become. So, I guess to wrap things up, I think it's important to embrace failure.
100%.
Don't shy away from it. Learn, see what you can learn as a lesson, and then apply that to everyday life, and keep taking risks, keep going for things that are hard, choose your hard, and be willing to learn. And that's what essentially is going to make that strong man that you were talking about. And, as Jerome just said, that's what makes up the strong man. And don't be afraid to talk about it, talk about your feelings, be willing to be vulnerable.
Oh, definitely. And obviously, like we said right at the start of the episode in the intro, you need to be controlling the things that are within your control. Before you give your closing remarks, I want to ask one piece of advice for young people that are lost, young people that are trying to find their identity. What's one thing that they can do to start?
One thing that you can do, I think the biggest thing is to phone a friend. Phone whoever you cherish closely, whether that's a good mate, your mum, your dad, your grandma, whoever it may be, and just explain, express yourself, express how you feel, what you're going through, because often it's just someone on the outside can see the picture so much clearer than what you're in now. It's easy to look outside in than to look inside out. So having someone there to be able to help you go through the steps and whatnot. For me, that was my mum. She helped me through a whole bunch of shit that has happened over the past year or so. And she helped me just break it down into smaller chunks, because I get so overwhelmed, all these different moving parts. And she helped me kind of break it down into something that's more manageable, that I can focus on now, controlling what I can control and not worrying about, anything else. And then just focusing on that, and then the next piece, and the next piece, and the next piece. And then and soon enough, it's all going to be...
The puzzle comes together.
The puzzle comes together, and you'll be so much better now. Whether that's a week, 1 year... who knows?
It's different for everyone.
It's different for everyone.
That's a fantastic piece of advice, bro. And as you said, the biggest takeaway from that is don't try and take it all on at once by yourself, like you said, because it depends on how big the problem is. And even what might seem like a small problem to you might be massive to someone
100%.
else. So as you said, you have to break it down. It's funny because that resonated so well with me, bro, from what I had gone through a few years ago. Yeah, it was little things. What can you fix now? Because if you look at this big picture, you're like, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and I have to do it all at once. It's like, that's not realistic.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to start small and talk to someone. Like, it's for me, that was Nick. It was Nick, and it was actually my parents too. I'd physically broken down in front of my family, and I said, this and this is going on. And it wasn't until I had the balls to freaking do that when I could actually see actionable change. So I wanted to thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
It's
that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, thanks, guys.
and especially like people look at bodybuilders and people that are built, and they think, oh, these guys are just capable people. They don't need help. They're strong, but in reality, we're only strong because of the people we surround ourselves with.
Correct.
Exactly.
100%.
That's right. So we wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast, Jerome. It was a fantastic piece of advice there, brother. And
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
we look forward to many more chats. And until the next one, guys.
Absolutely.
Until then, thank you.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thanks.